Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the HQ Sportscast, your headquarters for all things sports. And if you listened to our episode last week, we started covering San Jose State football. It's officially game week, and we have a special guest with us today. We have Chris Trevino. Chris, would you like to introduce yourself and tell the folks who you are?
Hey guys, yeah, I'm Chris Trevino. I'm a senior writer at wearesc.com, part of the On3 network. This is my 10th year covering USC football. You guys are both students, so I feel very old. But it's okay. We're gonna do this podcast. We're gonna crush it.
Yeah, so since me and Niles, we're always in the loop for San Jose State football. We're not as much in the loop as USC, and this is the hardest game that the Spartans do have on schedule, and it'll be a battle. This will determine if the Spartan is better than the Trojan, or the Trojan is better than the Spartan. Niles, do you want to start us off with some questions, and we could toss it around?
Um, Realistically, I just kind of want to see how the vibes are for fall camp because I know USC has a lot of changes going on their side, and same with the Spartans too.
Yeah, the vibes are really, really high. I mean, this is a team that feels pretty good about their outlook for 2026. Pretty much, they expect to make the college football playoff. That's kind of what the mentality has been. They have a lot of goodwill with the fan base this offseason. They had their new $225 million performance center just open up a couple weeks ago, so they've been using that, and they just had the number one recruiting class in 2026 come in. So 34 guys, a couple five stars. Got a lot of those guys look like they're going to be contributing this year. So a lot of excitement, but it's also year five for Lincoln Riley. So fans want a playoff appearance. So that's kind of the vibe right now. Everyone expects a lot out of this team going to this season.
Yeah, I dived into the number one recruiting class because that really caught my attention. Just out of pure curiosity, what makes USC suddenly such a big hub for transfers to come in? Because you wouldn't, from my perspective at least, I wouldn't expect USC to even be in like the top five, top 10 category. So what has stood out for transfers to go there?
Yeah, well, in terms of transfers, USC definitely relied on them a little more earlier in the Lincoln Riley era because, he had to overturn the entire staff and roster that he was working with, so it wasn't up to snuff, even though they still almost, went to the playoff that first year. But they relied heavily on transfers, and they've been trying to wean themselves off of transfers, and they want to build through the high school ranks. That has been the philosophy with their new GM, Chad Bowden. So they took a lot with those 35 high school kids this past year, and then they kind of tried to cut down as much transfers as they can. They had little less than 10, but they picked some pretty impactful guys. Alex Van Sumeren out of Michigan State, defensive lineman, started 2 years there. Jontez Williams, the number one corner in the transfer market. He out of Iowa State, out of the Big 12, and then a pretty good wide receiver, junior Terrell Anderson at NC State. So they were really selective on the transfer guys that they wanted to bring in because they've really been emphasizing high school, high school, high school, building the culture and the roster through there.
And then let's talk about the wide receivers because at San Jose State we lost our whole wide receiver core. You guys lost Jacoby Lane and then Makai Lemon. How are you guys, or how is the USC planning on replacing that type of talent?
They're gonna have to do that by committee because you cannot replace a guy like Jacoby Lane with his size and athleticism, and obviously Makai Lemon, best pass catcher in the country last year is the Blitnikoff and consensus All American, unanimous All American. So you can't really fill that. So they're gonna try to, but they got a lot of talented guys that they're really excited about. But they are inexperienced to an extent. Terrell Anderson, who I mentioned, is a junior. He has good production from last year, like 600 yards. He should be, one of he is their oldest guy in there, so he should be a steady veteran presence. And then Tanook Hines is kind of the guy a lot of people are circling to be that breakout this year, was the number three last year. Behind those two guys, third option for Jada Mayava. He was a true freshman, won the job as a true freshman, the number three receiver. He's capable of running like a 4.3, 4.4. He has elite speed, 6'1". He's big. He can go up and make contested catches. He's been a little banged up in fall camp. He had an off-season procedure, missed all of spring, missed the majority of fall camp, but he has been back slow. I don't know how much they're going to throw at him in the first game, but he's a guy that they expect to be a 1,000-yard receiver. Then they got a bunch of talented young guys coming up that they're really excited about. Trent Mosley is probably the one you should know about the most. He is on track to be a starter like Tunick was last year as a true freshman out of that slot position. Out of Santa Margarita, won a state championship in his final year of high school football. A lot of people are comparing him to Makai Lemon. So I think those are kind of the top three guys that come to mind, but they have a whole slew of guys that they could throw in there. Booby Feaster out of Texas, Caden Dixon Wyatt, top 50 recruit. Corey Sims is a sophomore who a lot of people are excited about. So they might have 8, 9 guys playing on Saturday. They'll pare down that rotation at some point, but they're going to throw a lot of names out there for Jaden Mayaba to build some chemistry with guys.
Yeah, something that was interesting was you're saying that your coaching staff is going to use depth at wide receiver. Our coaches, our San Jose State coaches, are kind of using replacing that talent by depth at that committee too. So it's something that's interesting to me.
Yeah, certainly. When you lose some guys, I know
Hmm.
San Jose State's built some pretty good receivers the last 2 years with Danny last year and then Nick the year before. So I'm not sure if that guy's on your roster yet, but we're gonna find out, I guess.
And
Yeah,
then what would you
you can
say
go
is
ahead.
the biggest question mark, heading into the USC season and heading into this game too?
Yeah, the biggest question mark. I mean, I think it's just I think those are two different questions for me because I think the biggest question mark for USC as a team in general is just like, can they win a big game? Like, can they beat an Oregon? Can they beat an Indiana on the road? Can they beat Penn State on the road? USC
Hmm.
hasn't really done well on the road under that big win, but obviously this is a home game, and we know USC plays really, really well
Hmm.
at home, so I'm not concerned about in that aspect. But if you look at it from in the entire perspective of USC, it's like, can they actually get it done? Can they beat a good team on the road, and can they be a good team, beat a good team at home? They'll have Oregon coming to the Coliseum. They'll have Ohio State coming to the Coliseum. Obviously, those are big games. They got Washington coming to the Coliseum, but first they have San Jose State, and that's the game they're really focused on right now. The big question for that, I think a lot of people are just really interested to see Lincoln Riley's new defensive coordinator hire, Gary Patterson. You probably recognize that name,
Yep.
the Hall of Fame coach from TCU. He's back in it at USC. I think a lot of people are really excited about what Gary can bring to this program, and he's been like hitting it hard, going for rebuilding this defense. Like he does not leave the facility. He arrives at the facility at night. He leaves at night. He is just putting all into rebuilding USC's defense. So this is going to be the debut. USC fans have not seen
Hmm.
anything of this Gary Patterson defense. So I think that is kind of the big question. Like, what does it look like on the field, this first opponent, week zero? That I think that's kind of what everyone wants to see.
And then how have the guys started to buy into his system, and how are they taking it, like the adjusting to the system?
Yeah, I mean they love him. They love GP. That's what they call him. I mean he's an older gentleman. He's probably close to 60, Hall of Famer, but he has so much excitement and energy when he's out there. He's getting down there. He's showing them how to do the technique. In the spring, he was actually running through a tackling drill, showing them. So, he's old, but he's not showing it out there. He's got a lot of pep in his step. He's got a lot of energy, and that feeds off these defenders. They've been craving something like this, and they're getting it with GP and the staff that they have brought in. They brought in a lot of young guys to, kind of offset Gary Patterson's age, but he has not been showing any age
Hmm.
in the couple months that I've been covering him. He's been fired up to be here. Very excited to be back working with the defense of his
Yeah.
own. So he's brought a real head coach mentality, which is no surprise given, his past at TCU.
Lucas, you want to go?
Yeah, this is like a question that I had. I think you kind of chimed off on it because again, one of the things that caught my eye was 4 top 15 teams are in the schedule, and there is a significantly large recruiting class. These are kids that lack experience in college football. Is that a concern that people might have? Do you think that that might be a problem for them? How do you think that just the team in general is going to take on that type of competition? Because they have a really strong team on paper, but they have one of the hardest strengths of schedule in the league as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, kind of balancing how much do you play these young guys because we're living in the age of NIL. You invest a lot in these players. You want to see them on the field. You don't want to bench your number one draft pick. You draft them first. You want to play them. So guys like Luke Wayful, Tom Tom Tupui, Trent Mosley, all these guys, these talented guys, they're going to play a role for USC, but also they are freshmen, and I think people, kind of expect a freshman of that caliber, a 5-star, a top 100 guy to play and play well right away. But there is a learning curve to college, and it depends on the position as well. So I think you'll see some of these guys, get their feet wet. I think this San Jose State game. You're going to see a ton of freshmen in this game. I wouldn't if they're healthy, they're gonna play. Like I do not I would not be shocked if every freshman that suits up plays in this game because they want to get those guys some experience because they're gonna need some of those guys. When they go to Indiana, when they go to Penn State, when they play Oregon in several weeks. They're gonna need some of these key guys. But USC does have some key returners across the board returning, but they're also one of the youngest teams in the Big Ten Conference. So youth can break teams. The pressure's too big and the moment's too big, and it happens. That's not like Indiana won last year, and they were the oldest team in college football. So experience and that matters in age. So they feel really good about a lot of them because they were early enrollees. They got them here in the winter. They were able to go through spring camp. So they don't feel like true freshmen to them. They feel like maybe older sophomores or redshirt freshmen. But again, all that we're going to find that out on the field in kind of these games, and it'll start week 0 with San Jose State.
I think that's what makes this matchup really a lot more interesting now than I was thinking. Because for the way how I view this game for a San Jose State aspect, it kind of seems like that this is more of like to figure out who they actually want to start with and who they want to roll with for the rest of the season. And this is kind of just like a test and experiment on who are going to be the standout guys. And it seems like USC is kind of, maybe I'm wrong, but it kind of seems like they're in the same scenario as we are right now in some aspects.
Yeah, piggybacking off that, noticed that too. There's a lot of weird similarities. Like you guys have a new DC, we have a new DC coming in. We have a lot of wide receivers, brand new wide receiver room. You guys have a lot of transfers too. So I feel like both the coaches are going to try to get the same thing out of this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't want to. I'm not trying to disrespect San Jose State, but obviously we know USC is the heavy favorite in this game. But it does feel like a preseason game in that
Mhm.
in that sense that both sides wants to see what they have. San Jose State knows this is going to be the toughest game of the season for them, but hopefully it makes them better the long term when they get into their conference slate, and they want to see which new guys, which transfers, which guys they've been buzzing about in practice, which freshmen can help them in those games in conference that are really, really going to matter. And obviously, if they play well and do some good things and put some good tape out there against USC, that's going to give them confidence. Now, again, USC probably going to win this game by a lot, but again, it's about getting the experience, getting under those lights, and even though it's a day game, but you know what I mean, just getting that experience under them and seeing who's ready to play against, a quality opponent out of the Big Ten like USC.
Nas, you want to piggyback off of it? I feel like we
Well,
didn't taste
I was
this.
just I was just wondering like how the guys kind of have been talking from your perspectives. Have been talking about this opponent because sometimes you can get down on your opponent.
Yeah, I mean, it's classic like player speak and coach speak. It's we're taking it one game at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're not really worried about we're not worried about Fresno State, which is their week 2 matchup. We're worried about San Jose State. That is the game in front of them. So this is we haven't covered a practice yet, but that begins on Tuesday. But I'm assuming we're going to hear that. You're going to hear all the utmost respect for San Jose State, and they've started scheming them up earlier than this week too. So I'm sure Gary Patterson has been watching as much San Jose State film as he can over the last couple of weeks, getting ready for this game. But they're going to be they're not going to take San Jose State lightly. I mean, again, they want to get the maximum performance and effort out of these guys. They're not going to go in there, sleepwalking. This is an opener to set the tone for the rest of the year. And again, LSU, San Jose State, they're looking at it the same. They want to go out there and put a big performance for the fans in their opener.
And what do you think is one thing that San Jose State can maybe exploit against this USC team with the number of question marks that are going on?
Yeah, I think I'll give you one for both sides. I think USC lost their starting center, their projected starting center for the year to an injury, like the first week of camp. Pretty brutal hit. They've been experimenting with one of their Swiss Army knife players, Tobias Raymond, who could play left tackle last year, played right guard, left guard, could literally play anywhere. But this offseason, they started experimenting him at center. A lot of fans wanted to see him move forward into the center because he is a big center. He's 6'6", 350 pounds. But with this injury to Keelan O'Connor, their projected starting center, it's going to be the Tobias Raymond show. So, they have inexperience at center. Tobias has never played center at the college level, and the backups behind him have like one snap combined playing center. So they're going to be pumping a lot of snaps into these guys. So if San Jose State wants to take advantage of something on USC's offensive side of the ball, it's probably attacking Tobias Raymond in the middle and see how he handles, being the center, calling out, what he sees, making sure everyone's lined up. It's going to be a struggle. It's going to be a new thing he adapts to. So in that sense, maybe they can confuse him and kind of take advantage there. But again, they're going to be pumping a lot of snaps into all their centers down the board because they need to build depth. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I mean, this scheme, this is the first time they're going to be running it against another opponent, and communication is such a big part of Gary Patterson's defense. They literally have two different calls for the defense. The secondary has their own calls, and then the front has their own calls that comes in from the linebackers defensive line. So a lot of moving pieces have to go together for it to work perfectly. So San Jose State, I know that they're running it back with their offensive coordinator. They can put up numbers, they can put up yards. If they can take advantage of some of these early, learnings of the defense, being out there for the first time against an actual opponent, they may be able to get some, miscommunication and seize upon that and get some busts or somewhere at that. And obviously they've been working really hard at communication, but you don't actually know until you see someone firing live bullets at you on the field. So that San Jose State can kind of take advantage of, knowing they have, a prior offensive system already in place, and they're pretty comfortable in that.
Lastly, before we let you go, just do you think USC covers the 35.5 point spread?
Is that what it is? 35.5? Ooh,
Yep.
I haven't even looked at that. Just doing some quick math. Just doing some quick math. I mean, yeah, I would assume. I usually always take USC to cover in the opener, so
Mm-hmm.
I would see that number, and I'm not shying away from it. I'd probably say yes.
Something I
No
would
offense
say.
to San Jose State.
No.
No offense to San.
Something I would say in response to that is that we did go on the road to play Texas last year, and they covered the Texas. Texas ended up being not so good towards the end of the season, but heading into that game, they covered. So anything can happen.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's a lot of kids from the SoCal area on the San Jose State team. A lot of kids, some kids USC actually offered and was looking at. Maybe they didn't offer. So there's a lot of that extra motivation. Like, hey, you guys didn't want me. I'm here to play in the Coliseum. I'm here to ruin your night. Again,
Yep.
I still think USC wins, but again, that little extra motivation, maybe that's enough to to not make it a 35.5 point win for USC.
I think that's all we had right now. Is there anything else?
That's it pretty much. I'll probably see you in the press box at the Coliseum.
Yeah, I'll be down on the field, but
Yep.
I'll be up there in the press box before game, and I'll come say hi. Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for your time, Chris. We really appreciate it.
Yep, we appreciate it. Thank you.
So we are now going to head to the final segment. We kind of went through a season preview of San Jose State, but I would say this is more of like our official predictions. I know I had asked you guys how many wins you thought San Jose State were going to have, but I don't think we did some really in-depth research on it, or for mine at least. Nick Reyes kind of put me on the spot, and I had no preparation on how I thought they were actually going to do. So before the season truly kicks off, this is our last predictions. I think we're going to start with record predictions. Is that right? And then we're going to go to offensive and defensive player of the year. My 2026 San Jose State record predictions. Like I said, it's kind of hard to figure out where they're going to be. Week 1 against USC, it's going to be a loss for me. I think this is kind of more like how we mentioned. This is more of a preseason game, in my opinion. This is more of a spot and an opportunity for Coach Ken and the coaching staff to see where their team is at and get a finalized idea of how their depth chart is truly going to look like, because we know the starting quarterback, but I think everything else is a lot more open, I would say. So USC is going to be lost. Then they head down to Eastern Michigan. I have that one a loss too, honestly. Again, I think that this is going to be a streaky season for San Jose State, but Eastern Michigan has a very similar play style to Central Michigan, I feel like. And this is a team that doesn't have much experience playing with one another. There's a lot of transfers. I think that it's going to be a hard road to begin the season off of. You have to travel all the way down to Michigan. So I think it's going to be a really close game, but I think that just the lack of experience this team has together will drop them to 0-2. However, they go down or they come back home to play Cal Poly. I think that's a win. I think that's a really good one to get on the board. It should be an easier matchup for them. It's Brian Duke's revenge game. That was his former college. So I think that should be a relatively smooth sailing game. I'm hoping that it's not like the Idaho game last season, which was really, really close in the beginning, and then San Jose State managed to pull away with it at the end. I think it'll be a lot smoother of a run this time around. And then another home game is against Fresno, I reckon. Am I correct on that? It's Fresno. I had them dropping against Fresno too. I just think that Fresno State is too good of a team. They outplayed us heavily in the last home game of last season. I think this one will be a much tighter, more competitive game. But again, there's so much undetermined in San Jose State where I don't feel confident enough to give them a win against Fresno State. And then you have to take the long road down to Hawaii. I know this is Weaver's most recent college that he was before he came to San Jose State. I have them dropping that one too. So I have them going 1-4 to begin with. Here, I'm going to pull up the record because off the top of head, or you can say
bye. And then it's the bye, and then they have Wyoming. So you're gonna have a bye week, go on the road, play Wyoming.
Yeah, so I think before the bye week happens, 1-4, it doesn't look good for the team, and I think that people are gonna write off San Jose State. I really think that this is where they kick the gears and start moving. I think they beat Wyoming. They go up and play Nevada the week after that, right? Here, I'm gonna pull this up.
No, they play UTEP. You can pull it up. Oh.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull this up real quick. I have them beating UTEP. UTEP statistically was not very strong at all last season. We beat them in every category. I know it's a completely different year. New conference. I know we're playing in the Sun Bowl, which is going to be a cool atmosphere, but I think that this still is a much better team than UTEP. And then we go on the road to play Nevada and Reno. And this is the one game that I really think that this team has circled on their calendars. Anyone who returned from last season, they want to get back in this game. This is a huge revenge game for San Jose State. They haven't beaten Nevada in a couple of seasons. I think that streak comes to an end now. I think they go back to Reno. And I'm not saying that they're going to blow out Nevada, but I really think that they're going to come with some crazy intensity in this game. And this is going to be a get-right game for them from last season. And this is an important one, too, for Coach Ken and for Craig Sutzman, too, depending on where this team is at right now. If Nevada's struggling again and you go on the road, you can't get blown out from them a second straight year, because that one was the cherry on top was a disastrous season for San Jose State. So I really think that they want to turn it around. And this is kind of where they flipped the scripts. It's 3 wins in a row. You go back home, play New Mexico. San Jose State has really good history with New Mexico. I think that continues on. They get a win there. And in Northern Illinois, another home game. I'm not convinced by Northern Illinois just yet. So I have them winning that game too. So that's 5 wins in a row. I went them from going 1-4. They now sit at 6-4. And I think people are going to start noticing San Jose State on the map a little bit. I think people get a little bit too excited about them because I had them dropping against Air Force. That's a really gritty team. Had to go on the road, right? We were on the road for that game. Yeah. Go on the road. I think that's going to be a hard loss. It'll be close. And then UNLV is just, again, one of the more powerhouses of the Mountain West. I think they're a far exponentially better team than San Jose State. They had them dropping that game. And North Dakota State, this was the one that I was really scratching my head about, because this is a team that hasn't played at this level of college football before, but they were a powerhouse in the FCS. So I don't really know how they're going to go necessarily, but I do think North Dakota State is going to be okay in the Mountain West, and I do think that they beat San Jose State to cap off the season. So I have them dropping 3 of their first 4, winning 5 in a row, then dropping 3 in a row. So I have them going 6-7 right now. I don't know if I'll make them bowl eligible. It will be cutting the surface, though.
Yeah, it's because since they have a 13-game schedule, they're going to have to win 6 or 7 games to make them bowl eligible.
Yeah, so I think they will be bowl eligible. This is going to be a really streaky year for San Jose State, and that's just my big prediction, is that they're going to figure things out, but I think the top half of their or the first 4 games, 5 games are really hard, and the last 3 games are very challenging too. So they really have to take advantage of that middle portion of the
Yep.
season because that's really where you can haul up a bunch of wins and maybe cross fingers that you can like the Air Force game. That's a very winnable game. A lot of these
Yep.
can be very tight, and I believe will be tight. But again, there's still a lack of experience and a lack of chemistry on this team right now that I just can't put my finger down and be like, yeah, I haven't been UNLV. But I think this team can beat majority of the teams on the schedule, but they just have to prove it to me first.
Yeah. When I look at the schedule, obviously USC I have as a loss, but then I do see there's going to be some momentum, and I think San Jose State has typically struggled against MAC teams, but this will be a rematch of the 2022 bowl game at Eastern Michigan, at the Idaho Potato Bowl, and I think they go on the road to win that game. And I'm a little bit more optimistic than Lucas, but I have a few losses where he has W's at, and
Mm-hmm.
and then we go play Cal Poly. Cal Poly, I think that they should handle business. One thing that sticks out to me is that blowout loss they had against them a couple of years ago, and I think Brian Dukes, like you mentioned, the revenge game, and I think FCS school and the way they play it in the FCS will be a lot more favorable for the Spartans.
Mm-hmm.
Fresno State, it's at home. Battle of the Valley, trophy's going to be on the line this game, but just the way I can't get that image of last season's Battle of the Valley out my mind. I know the season was pretty much over for the Spartans, and it was hard for the players just to get up for that game. But again, if there's this is a big momentum shifter for me because before the non-conference schedules kicks off, before everything, I think this game and then the first 3 games are, like we said, they're a mixed bag. USC top 15 team in the nation. Eastern Michigan, that's a MAC school. They play a little differently. Very physical team. Cal Poly, FCS school. I think I think that's gonna be a far margin. I think the spread will be big that game. But Fresno State, former Mountain West school, just left the conference last year. Very similar opponent, very familiar opponent than that they would see in the conference. But I do still see the Spartans taking a loss in that game, and that's the end of the non-conference schedule. And they go on the road to play Hawaii. Coach Ken always gets up for that game. There's a whole line of Hawaii lineage at San Jose State, and I can't the image of last year
Mm-hmm.
SJSU backs against the wall. That's the game that gave everybody hope that they would turn that season around last year's the Hawaii game. Within on the road, I think I have them losing that game to start off their conference schedule. But then I think you have Wyoming at home actually. When you get Wyoming at home, I think that's a W. I recall the Danny Scudero 3 touchdown first half game. I think San Jose State would have won that game if he had never got hurt. Walker never got hurt. Walker Egan from last season quarterback. If he would have never got hurt, I think they very easily win that game. They were up 28-3, and the quarterbacks behind Walker weren't not that great. And then we play on the road at UTEP Sun Bowl. I think UTEP's going to be towards the bottom of the Mountain West Stadium standings. That's just the way I see it, the way I saw it at Mountain West Media Day. They're very hyped up, but there's a lot of holes on that roster. A lot of holes on that roster. And I see this year as a kind of a gap year, get them adjusted to this conference. And then Nevada. Like Lucas said, they're gonna have the Coach Kins is gonna have this game circled. I do have this game as a W, to be honest. I think when you talk about just how Mackey Stadium's been like a rough house or horror house for San Jose State football the last couple years, and I think they turn it around this year. I think they come into that game with some serious, having lost what 55-17, 55-10 last year on the
Mhm.
road in that game. That game led to some coaches losing their job. I think, like Lucas said, the players will be fired up, the coaches will be fired up for that game, and I think they come in as the more motivated team. And when you think about it, Nevada's a team that's their coaches on the hot seat, and
Mhm.
they're looking for some stuff. And by that point in the season, it's kind of make or break, and I think that's the point where they break. New Mexico back at home. There's some question marks with New Mexico. Jack Lane's hurt. Their starting quarterback, he's hurt right now, and I feel like there's a couple other injuries that I've been, hearing about from them. And last year, you know, they struggled on the road. They struggled coming here on the road, and they lost a lot of power. If you like, they lost Dorian Thomas, tight end. He went to Cal. They lost a lot of options in the wide receiver room, and I think that's going to make Jack Lane's job harder if he's coming back for that game. And in the secondary is much improved. Their run defense is all right, but the spread and shred takes advantage of the pass, and I think that's the San Jose State upset, and I think that's one of the few upsets I have on the schedule. But then, we have Air Force. Air Force is an interesting one for me. I just don't think San Jose State is equipped to match their play style, and you see a lot of those matchups in the Mountain West, where it's just bad luck. Different playing styles playing each other. And I think Air Force is one of those teams where it's just going to be a long day. And I don't think we have the defensive line that are big enough to just go against the run against their offensive linemen that are just huge and just go against the run all day. So I do have that as a loss on the road. And similar to Lucas, I have the UNLV and the NDSU games back at those two games are at home, which I view UNLV and NDSU very similarly. I think they're going to be top of the conference type of teams, but I do think top of the conference in the Mountain West still means it's going to be a close game every week.
Mhm.
But I do have San Jose State, losing both of those games. But there's still an option to where they can go win those games, and because they're at home, I think NDSU on the road that would have been a loss. Playing in the Fargo Dome, but I think at home it gives them a little more wiggle room to pull something off.
Yeah, I still think that one is a huge toss up. A lot of these games really, really are,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so impossible to predict what's going to happen this year. The
Yeah,
completely new look for the Mountain Wests. But I also think that this is
mm-hmm.
a advantage for San Jose State. I think this is kind of the best time to have a get right year because the expectations are set low. But this conference is wide open, if you tell me. There's new teams. This is a completely different looking conference. If you really want to go out and make some noise and kind of be under the radar and surprise some people, this is the year to
Yep,
do it. And
yep.
based on what I've been seeing at practice so far, this team seems a lot more driven than last season, if you tell me, which gives me much more confidence that this team will be more successful than last season, despite maybe not having the best looking roster or having a lot of new guys in. The team seems pretty dialed in right now, and that gives me more confidence that they'll have a more successful season.
Yeah, I have them around 6 wins too. Also, and just piggybacking off what you were saying, you could put UNLV as top just because they've been there before. They lost what 2, 3
Mm-hmm.
Mountain West championships in a row to Boise State, but again, they still have to prove it. And then you have UNLV, you have teams like I just said, you have NDSU, you have teams like Hawaii, you have New Mexico. Though all three of those teams have question marks. For NDSU, it's how they perform at this level. For Hawaii, it's losing some of their receivers and losing a lot of seniors. For New Mexico, it's kind of wide receiver quarterback ish. So all those top four teams kind of have question marks, which makes an upset season or maybe like an underrated season possible in the Mountain West.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think a lot of people are predicting San Jose State middle of the pack to bottom of the pack, which I think is very possible happening just based off last year's season. But just again, the vibes of the team this year, I think a lot of guys have told me their goal is to win a Mountain West championship. Is that going to happen? Probably not. but or we don't. It's yet we're waiting to find out. But
Mhm.
I think a bowl game is very much in the realm of possibility for Spartan
Mhm.
fans.
Yeah, and it's a lot more of a possibility than people think right now. I think last season people forget they were just a few kicks away from being bowl game eligible. That
Yep.
record alone doesn't speak to what that team was truly capable of. And if they just fix up those really small mistakes that were huge last season, it's going to be a much more successful of a year for them. To close out the segment, our final thing was going to be defensive and offensive player of the year. Who are your picks, Niles?
Defensive player of the year off the top of my head will be Niles Danielson. I think he's the key for San Jose State to have a successful year. Just running a new system with Boj. I think there's going to be some similarities to what they ran with Derek Odom, but I think they're going to be a little bit more aggressive. That's what I've gotten from players. That's what I've gotten from coaches. I think they're going to be a little bit more aggressive on the back end and the secondary with their new coordinators and safeties coaches. And I think he's going to have to call the defense well and have a good understanding of it just to make it successful. And also, he needs to fill up that middle of the field and help the sides of the field too as a linebacker. For offensive player of the year, I'm kind of struggling with that one because just because there's so many question marks at wide
Mm-hmm.
receiver, I feel like that would be the obvious guess just based off of previous San Jose State seasons the last couple of years with Craig Stutzman. But you know, I think I'm gonna go Weaver just based off of what I've gotten from offensive coordinators, what I've gotten from most of the guys on the offense is they're going more of a committee based. I think if somebody gets hot hand in the receiver room, maybe that answer changes. But for right now, since they're saying it's going to be more rotating guys, I think Luke Weaver is going to have to rack up those passing yards and help the Spartans in that way.
Yeah, I kind of cheated. I put two guys' names for each category just
Mm-hmm.
because these are for the probably the four guys that I have a lot of expectation that I don't know if it's going to reach it or not, but I think these guys have a lot of potential. Started with Defensive Player of the Year. I have number one, Isaiah Buxton. I really think it's a genius move from San Jose State to bring in a guy who just formerly played behind a former first round pick in the NFL draft and played with one of the best defenses in the country
Mm-hmm.
last year. And when Buxton was on the field, he put some really good stat line behind it. So I have a lot of high hopes on the secondary. They struggled immensely last season. I think that San Jose State did a good job recruiting guys in and continuing with that secondary pattern. I think Brian Dukes is going to be another guy that will put a big impact. He's been playing at the college
Yep.
level for some time now. He's on a new team, but I kind of get this vibe that
Senior
he is
year.
like a leader a little bit on this
Yeah.
team. A little.
Something that stood out when I talked to him last week, he said the secondary wants to lead the Mountain West in interceptions, which stood out for me because last year they were bottom of the Mountain West with 7 interceptions. So that's something I think that's the mindset with the secondary has changed, which I think will pay a lot of dividends come middle of the season.
Yeah, I personally think that Buxton has one of the highest ceilings on anyone on this roster, in my opinion, even though he is a
Mhm.
sophomore right now. But when you play behind a former first round NFL draft pick and one of the best defenses, like that alone just makes me a little bit excited on what he can possibly do on this team. And Brian Dukes, again, he just feels like a leader for some reason on this team.
Mhm.
And I can't get behind why, but he holds himself as one. And I can see him being a leader on this defense for the rest of the season. For Offensive Player of the Year, I know you said you were going to go the obvious route. I do think Weaver's going to have a great season. I'm going to go with two wide receivers, though. I like Jerry McClure a lot.
Mhm.
I think that if there's anyone on this team that's going to take that Scudero and Nash role, which I don't think is going to happen, it's going to be McClure, in my opinion. Formerly with
Yep.
UCLA, he just seems like a great prospect for this team to have. And I think that if Weaver can get a good connection established with him, I think that he can really put up some numbers. But my prediction for the wide receiver room, I think it's going to be kind of like a Nash and Lockhart mix, not McClure having the same numbers as Nick Nash, but kind of having two dynamic guys. The second one is Malachi Riley. I think since Malachi, he didn't get a
Mhm.
chance to shine last season, San Jose brought some really solid wide receivers to that team in the transfer portal. And Malachi Riley was one of them, but he's kind of being overshadowed right now and isn't being talked about that
Yep.
much because he was out for majority of the season. He got hurt against Central Michigan, never saw the field again. And even with that short amount of playing time, he looked really solid.
Yep.
So I think he's been in the system for more than a year. I really think that Malachi Riley is going to have a 900 to 1,000 yard season with this offense. And I think that those two are going to be a really good duo in the receiving room, and I'm excited to see how it pans out.
Yeah, when you talk about Malachi Riley, he was starting over Kyrie Scholes, and then Kyrie Scholes ended up emerging just because the opportunity came up. So Malachi Riley could be one of those guys to just pick up where they were supposed to leave off. In that Central Michigan game, week 1 last year.
Yeah, there's a lot of competition in this year's receiver room, but I think, in my opinion, last season was the best receiver room San Jose State has had in quite some time. You had Leland Smith, you had Kyrie Scholes, so it was kind of hard. Even if Riley was healthy, it would have been hard for him to get targets
To
amongst
get in
four
the mix.
guys.
Yeah.
I think this year is so much more open, and since he's been in this system with Stutzman for more than a year now, I really think that he's finally going to have a good season. I think he's going to break out, honestly. I think that he's going to surprise a lot of people.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that's all we got, though. Is there anything else?
Stay tuned for just our recap episode on the USC game. I expect the game to be. I know we just had Chris Trevino. I expect the game. I don't think USC is covering that spread. I don't know if that's it might be a hot take. I think the USC wins maybe 21-28. I think the Spartans show some fight early, but I do believe USC overall wins, but I don't think they cover that spread. But if you gamble your money, don't blame me.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, first of all, any team that has a 35.5 point spread, it's just such a huge gap. And it's really, it doesn't matter who you're playing as a football team. That's not an easy spread to cover. Yeah. And again, this is a kind of get right game for USC too. It's not like they have their lineup set. Like, after talking to Chris, there's a lot of uncertainty on that team. There's so many young faces. They're going to rotate through a bunch of guys. So I think it's still going to be a 3 to 4 score win for USC, but I think 35.5 is just a little too high for them to get behind. And I do think San Jose State covers the spread. I think that it's going to be an ugly game for the most part, but I think the one benefit that this team needs to get out of it is to see some positive signs of what this team can truly be capable of. Even if it's like 5 plays, an entirety of a game, like, you just want to see small snips and like, this is what this offense and defense is capable of for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I just keep thinking back to Texas. I remember, I think they were like 28-point favorites, Texas was. And it was a close game up into the first quarter. I think that's another success for the Spartans. They keep it close up into the first quarter. Just make the game entertaining for fans at least. And I think they can do that with just Stutzman. I think Weaver will be prepared for the moment. We talked to him today. He seems very focused. So I do think it will be ugly, but there will be some positives from the game. That's my last take about this game.
Yeah, I think there's 2 final thoughts I have about it. I think the most important thing about this game is that the coaches figure out how they officially want this team to be lined up. You can always move some pieces around, but I think after this game, you need this finalized on, like, this is who we want to ride with for the rest of the season. Obviously, guys get hurt and guys might underperform, but what I really liked about that Weaver press conference with the coaches, they were like, this is our guy. There's no tossing, turning, and we're going to do 2 quarterback rotations, or like, we had a bunch of different rotations last season at certain positions, and it kind of just messes up the chemistry of the team in one sense. I just think it messes up a lot of different aspects. So I'm hoping, and they need to kind of finalize, and I'm like, okay, this is who we want to start. And the other thing too is, how can this team handle being in a hostile environment like the Coliseum? I don't know if the stadium's gonna be sold out. I think you looked at it like last night, and it looks like the game might be sold out.
Yeah, so it's gonna be a college football game. It's gonna be better, more of a hostile environment than they're used to, and I think that will play a role.
And I think that they'll handle it better, because when I talked to Stearns last week, I asked him how more prepared are they, because they had Texas last year and in USC 2 years before that. I think that's going to benefit them too, so they've been in this position before. And I honestly, for the returning guys, it's still going to be a hostile environment, but I'm not trying to throw any shade to USC. I've never been to a game before, but I wouldn't expect the USC game to be as loud and as hostile as a Texas game. Like, people in Austin will die for the Longhorns. I don't think people in LA would do the same for the Trojans, personally. So I think that they'll be more ready for that, which is another reason I think they'll cover the spread.
All right. A good episode. Stay tuned to subscribe on all our social medias. Follow the HQ on. So don't forget to subscribe. Follow the HQ on Instagram, the HQ Sportscast, and we'll stay tuned next week. I think we're gonna start doing maybe an NFL episode to keep that in rotation.
Yes.
And then we'll get a San Jose State recap probably on Mondays. So stay tuned.
Yep. We'll see you guys then. Take care. And we'll see you next time.
And recorded.